Hello and welcome to Thursday evening in office hours and on the rundown. This week, we're going to do things a little differently. We're still trying to sort of get our feet settled in this mud of technology that we are discussing and learning about together. And so this week, what we're going to try is we're going to have one main topic, and we're going to look at where we left off last week, which is the nature of communication and how communication is changing. But before we get to that, we have some big news that we're going to jump to with a quick rundown of this week's tech news. So we'll see you in a few minutes for the rundown. That was the fastest few minutes in the history of few minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the rundown. Here's our esteemed panel. Tamra, how are you, Tamra?
I'm doing great.
Good. Are you zoomed properly?
I'm zoomed properly.
Beautiful. That's what I like to hear. Andy, how you doing, sir?
Hey, everybody, doing really well tonight. Just trying to stay warm. We have snow up here.
It's snow. See, I haven't seen any snow for a long time down here in Florida. I don't know. I like the swag you got going. The dads and dudes.
Oh,
Is that dads and dudes?
thanks.
Yeah, dudes
Dudes
and
and
dads.
dads.
Oh, I did it backwards. Sorry. The dudes and dads swag. I love it. I love it. Paul, how you doing, sir?
Good. Coming from Hot Springs tonight. Normally I'm in Austin, but here I am in Hot Springs. It's raining in Austin and clear in Hot Springs.
Does it snow in hot? I mean, that sounds like a dumb question, but
It does. It snows.
There
Yes.
you go. It snows in hot. Okay.
Yep. We got snow.
Snows in Hot Springs. Lois, is it snowing by you?
It is not snowing. I do not expect it to snow. It hasn't snowed here in years. We get cold and wet and rainy in the winter, but it's not that cold. It's just cool. So we have a second growing season. We have a winter garden
There you
and
go.
a summer garden. Yeah.
There you go. So, I moved down to Florida 10 years ago, and it's still funny. The mornings down here this week were in the 50s, and it's still funny to me how Floridians they just don't know how to handle cold at all. It's 62 degrees, and they're in sweaters and hats and gloves. It's hysterical. It's so funny. They just have no idea what to do with it.
I wouldn't know what you're talking about here in Southern California.
That's right.
It's a physiological change, David. I know when
It
I
is.
moved here from Upper Peninsula of Michigan up by Canada, where it was like below zero every winter. And I moved here and now there's no way I could survive that.
No, I agree with you. My blood has thickened since thinned, whichever one it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Since I've been down here, I absolutely agree. So we wanted to, as I mentioned, we wanted to try things a little differently. We started with 3 topics, then we went to 2 topics. Now we're going to 1 topic because we all just talk too much. But we also do want to start with some news. Beep, 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 beep. I didn't have the news ticker yet. Breaking for this week. And as of 5 minutes ago, there were 3 stories, and now there are 5. So this may take up the entire hour. I have no idea. But
We'll be quick.
we'll try and be quick. But the first is actually a follow-up from last week's show. So last week's show, we were talking about social media, mental health, and then right after that show is when I started hearing about this Australian ban on social media. That they have this, they passed laws that any child under 16 is not allowed on social media, period. Is this going to work? Tamra, is it going to fix the problem?
I don't know that it's going to fix the problem, and I'm not sure that it's going to work this late in the game. Like, it feels like something that you'd have to introduce a little slowly. It's hard to take kids. I think it's hard to pull the plug once you've already like gone down that road.
I don't
Um,
understand how
I-
we're going to, what are we going to take everyone's phones away?
Yeah.
I don't even understand how it works.
Now, the thing is, there's a part of me that is like, yes, I think this is necessary. I think that it would be, it's really helpful for kids to not have to get to go out and play and to not be stuck in this digital space so soon. Like I had, this was years ago, this was like in 2010. I had 7th graders who were completely, um, they were more savvy than I could have ever been, not only at like computer things, but as a human. Like they were doing, like, I don't even know how it works, setting up rooms or something that they were selling in Minecraft. But they were getting together with people all over the internet. And I'm like, well, tell me about these meetings you do. And they're like, well, we have a vice president, a treasurer, and a secretary. And we go through all of the point. And I was like, they're doing a network. These are the same meetings I used to go to when I was a TV exec. Like they're the exact
Yeah.
same type of things. And this kid's 12. And I'm like, do you make money off this? Thinking like $50. She's like, I make about $500 or $600 a month. And I was like, but you're a woman. And one of the kids had gotten into a contract that was a legit contract that they had to get a lawyer, his family had to get a lawyer to get him out of it because it was kind of so dangerous in a lot of ways. And so the truth is, like, as an adult, I barely can manage my time online. And I know that I'm like, wow, I've lost an hour to, some social media. Kids just don't have the full frontal lobe to manage that kind of information.
Yeah.
How they're going to do
Paul,
it, I don't know.
Paul, what do you say?
It's not going to work. I
It's not
mean,
gonna work.
kids are too smart. They're smarter than their adult overlords, I think, because they're going to have AI. They're just going to say, "Hey AI, what's Ruth doing over there in the third grade? What's she up to today?" And AI is going to tell them, and they're going to find umpteen ways to get around this. It's just not going to work at all. And and these are all the social media is all their friends. Now, of course, there's a benevolent part of social media, and there's a sinister part of social media, and there's a amoral part of social media. So it's something that they're going to have training on how to use social media for your benefit rather than your detriment, I think.
Yeah. Andy, you have
Yeah,
young kids.
Yeah, I I do, and they have some social media, depending on how old they are. But I think that social media is here to stay, and I think that we need to talk to our kids about it and how to be responsible net citizens. And again, they're gonna find ways around it, and I don't know how Australia is gonna actually like they can ban it, but what is it gonna do? Who's gonna enforce that?
Right. Yeah. Enforcement is a big piece of this. And again, I'm not sure I understand the mechanics of how they plan to do this. I just don't get it. Lois, what do you say?
I would like to put this conversation at the end of our show after we do our main topic, because I think there's some things coming up in there that'll apply to this.
Oh my goodness, this is a
It's
brand new
always thinking.
format and you're already ruining it for me. All right, we can come back to that. We can absolutely come back to that. But before we go any farther, this is something I'm so excited about. There was a breaking news story this week that Apple is finally going to do some Apple home what I don't even know what they call it, smart home stuff. I have to tell you, I have a couple of lights in here that I plugged into. I don't even know what brand they are, but the outlets, that you can control. I have a couple at home. I never remember which kind I buy, and so none of them work with the other things. None of them work with Apple. I can't get any of them to work on Apple. It to me, the smart home landscape is such a disaster, and Apple has had no interest, I think, in getting into it until now. Apparently, there's this new smart home device that's and a new strategy that's coming. So I guess my question is, do we need this?
Yeah.
We do. Why, Lois?
Well, you need it just for exactly what you said. There's so many different things going on out there. And if Apple can come up with one unified controller, they're gonna rule the market.
Yeah, they are, and they're going to squash a whole bunch of little companies that are, just trying to do their thing, I guess.
I love the idea of it. I really do. Because I'm an Apple person and I love
Yeah.
I would love to have my whole home controlled by it. I am so unconvinced of anything being operated by Siri, and I
Yes.
just have all of the things are like we're thinking about having this as a Siri, Siri based operation, but there's no more information than that. And if it's like the Siri of today, she doesn't like me.
You
We
know,
are not friends.
you know what's
You'll say that
I never thought of that, Tamara, but but Paul, you gotta just jump in. You can't raise your hand. Wait, but let me just say one thing to Tamara. Tamara, I never thought of it, but until you just said that. But I actually think that because of how weak um Shlomo or whatever her name, I don't want to say her name because then everything in my room beeps. But because of how lame I think she has been, how many I mean, she can't do basic tasks that if they were to make her the center of this Apple home, I think that would actually hurt any smart home products that they are trying or strategies that they're trying to launch because she
There's
has
like
such a bad name in
talk
those
about her
neighborhoods.
being better, right? Bigger and better Siri, but
You know, the bigger and
that's
better Siri. Here's the bigger and better Siri that we got with Apple Intelligence. You see the pretty colors? That's the well, yeah, see now it's talking to me and I didn't want it to.
right.
That's
it's
what
going
we
to turn
got.
your lights
Paul,
off, David.
I know.
We do need a smarter Siri, but see that there? That's the portal. See this is the
Is that,
portal. And
is that the
this is
Facebook portal?
Apple's answer to the
Wait,
to
wait,
the
wait, wait,
f-
wait.
to,
What is that? The
to the
Facebook portal?
yeah, the Facebook portal. It looks very similar
Oh,
to
that must be
this,
like the big one because I have the
Yeah.
small one.
Yeah. So
Oh, okay.
this is kind of their answer to the portal, and the people, the Facebook portal and all these devices, they can't make up their minds, but there's how whether they're going to keep them or whether they're going to extend them. But so it's an appliance.
I
It
love
sits
the
on your
Facebook. I
table.
love
I don't
the
know about a
Facebook portal.
square thing. A square doesn't make sense.
That was part of the report that it's not going to
Yeah,
be it's not going to be
get the
16
square
by 9. Yeah, it's going to be
It's going to be
Yeah.
square. Well,
squarer.
I actually heard square, like not
Right.
just squarer, but square, which is an interesting.
That's a
Um,
format
The
no one
price tag
uses.
doesn't make sense without it being vastly different. Because what they like the article that I read, it sounds like everything else that has already been kind of out there before. And I imagine Apple's is definitely going to look prettier and I'm hoping do more and all of these things. But it's kind of just teased out there right now. So we don't really know what it is. But $1,000 on your desktop when you can buy a $22 little orb from the other guys, it's hard to like again, I hope it's great. It's like I have high hopes. I want it to be exactly what it's going to be, but it's kind of just nebulous right now. Like
yeah,
I don't know what it is. I want it. I don't know
right.
what
I
I
mean,
want.
it's
I don't want to
coming
spend
in 20.
$1,000 on what they're describing because I
It
can
can't be
spend
$1,000. It
less.
can't be
They have
$1,000.
$200,
Right.
not $1,000. That's the different thing. And it's coming in 2025. So, we'll find out.
Yeah. You
Right,
know
but
why?
so I'm a sound girl. I don't want to have bad sound, and that's going to be one of the
Right.
main differences. So they're going to like the better quality things are going to be
The
the same price
speakers.
as an
Yeah.
iPhone. Is it going to be part of my iPhone? Because like so that's my I want it. I want it to be great. I want Siri to be amazing.
Yeah.
But there's been nothing released that tells me that it's any new and different, and there's not even like a teaser that it could be new and different because like that sentence describing it could describe any other device except that it's square.
Yeah.
Apple's leaning hard on Chat GPT, and that thing is accelerating. I think that's the bigger news.
There was, by the way,
is their alliance with OpenAI, Chat GPT, integrating that into Siri and the writing tools.
yeah, there was an interesting series this week. I want to say it was from the New York Times where Sam Altman, Sundar Pichai, like everyone, all the big shots from Amazon, Google, from OpenAI, they all talked about the future sort of the world with AI. And it was really fascinating listening to them. And one of the things they talked about, Paul, was these relationships and how OpenAI right now really relies on Amazon's AWS, and the question of, do they need their own, I don't know even what is supercomputers, is it okay for them to rely on these other companies? And talking also about the relationship, just all the relationships between the companies is another interesting piece of this. I'm gonna just jump over brain rot for just a second, and because just today, speaking of OpenAI, they launched their 12 days of OpenAI. I don't know what they're calling it, but it's 12 days, and every day for the next 12 days, they're making some big announcement or some release or something like that. And today they actually had two, and I just watched the release. It was out a few hours ago. The first is a new Pro plan of $200 a month. Was that me? Did I just beep? $200 a month. You know
What
what?
do you get? What do you get?
So
Yeah.
so you get
Unlimited.
you get unlimited. That's one thing you
Yeah.
get. You also get access to well, everyone gets access to. So the other announcement, let me back up. So the other announcement was ChatGPT 01, I think is what they call it. So this, hello. Oh no, that's not the right one. Sorry. Wrong scene. I thought I was doing a screen share. So 01 is now available to Plus users. So I pay, I'm a Plus user. And so I just switched to 01. Before we had access to 01 almost or something. I don't
Yeah, something like that.
But yeah. So the Pro plan, so what does the Pro plan get? It's unlimited access to all of their models.
Right.
And what else was it? Did I miss something else?
GPT 4.0.
No, that's the old one actually.
That's the old one. Yeah, they
01
just
is the
have a
new
new one.
one. Yeah.
You mean their version numbers are reversed?
It's not.
It's magic.
I don't understand it. There's the new one 01. There's much more reasoning in the model apparently, and it can also do ridiculous math and scientific. It's just unbelievable.
But
what
for
they're able to do.
$200 a month, who's that for?
Yeah,
Because
like
I don't see
Right,
people,
that's for the power
personal
users, I
people
guess.
paying that. Maybe companies, but I don't see you and I paying for $200 a month for that.
I'm not writing
No.
a book.
No, no, but I can imagine if you are a lab, or a university,
Sure.
and you're
yeah, I
doing,
can see that.
$200 a month. Honestly, it's only $2,000. It's $2,400. Like, it's not breaking the bank for organizations. I mean,
But is that an organizational rate? Because it feels to me like you could do
Oh.
better by sending an organization $20 a month, $25 a month, and per person. So it doesn't
per
make
person.
sense. Like $200 a month everyone is so subscription happy that it's making me crazy.
Yeah.
But because now I just play with my subscription. I'm like, I need Disney Plus for a month, and I'll get rid of everything else, and then I'll switch. And it's getting exhausting.
I put calendar reminders in my calendar. Cancel Hulu, cancel Disney.
I'll
cancel,
pay too. I mean, I thought we were going to stop paying subscriptions. We're paying
Yeah.
$200 a month.
Yeah,
But I want
Apple-
to what do you get for $200 a month? Like the $20 a month or whatever we're paying, David, that's worth it to me. Like that's one trip to the ATM.
Yeah.
I'm paying $8 a month for Grok, and Grok they've got two supercomputer clusters that are the largest on the planet, and they're using existing AI chips. I mean, these things are cranking. I've seen the racks and racks, and they're massive. They call it Colossus, the one in Memphis, and then they have one in Austin. They did an add-on to the Tesla plant. One end of the Tesla plant is just one giant supercomputer. And I've been getting incredible results for my, I pay for Twitter, and if you pay $8 a month for Twitter, you get Grok. And some of the results are just phenomenal.
And Sam Altman, one of the questions he was asked, by the way, was about the XAI, is that what Grok refers
That's
to?
it. Yeah. And
he
see,
said
they're using existing chips. Apple hasn't really developed their own AI chip yet.
Right.
So what are they going to run this thing on?
Right. And Sam Altman from OpenAI was saying that he feels like XAI really is going to be competition. Feels like it's going to put some stuff out there. OpenAI and Azure are best friends. They're all they, and yet, and this sort of goes back to the home automation, or not home automation. What do you call it? The home pod thing, whatever. The Apple Home stuff is that no one's on the same page. No one's working together. Right. And
but everybody has it.
Everyone has it, but they also have their own, like you said, Paul.
Yeah.
Right. X has their own servers, and OpenAI is using, and Apple doesn't have their own, and they're all building different ways to do the same work.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the pathway. The pathway is different with X, because X is going from self-driving cars to self-autonomous humanoid robots, and they're based in the real world, and they're not LLM. They're this other type of AI, which is relevant to the everyday world. So I don't think Apple's incorporating the everyday world into their AI like Grok is. It's great for doing treatises and PhD thesis and crunching words, but in terms of interfacing with the real world, we've got two different kinds of AI that are rolling out right now.
Yeah. Lois, go ahead.
David, you said that they're different. And this seems to me like when we first had tape recording for audio tapes, and there were all these different formats and these different ways of going, and they're fighting each other out, and eventually we all agreed, oh well, that's not very good, we'll stop using that one, and it went away, and so I think that's what's going to happen with this, is that at some point people will get either bought out or end user and whatever. And I think that brings me to my question about this notebook LM. That was another news article we had. What's going on?
Yeah, this is I'm worried about this. You all just told me about this before we got. So some of you know, some of you are watching know, I'm a huge Notebook LM fan. I think it's a really powerful tool with amazing potential. And apparently key leaders behind Notebook LM have left, including Reza Martin, the X-Team lead, and two other co-founders, Jason Spielman and Stephen Hughes. They couldn't shake the feeling, she said, that there's a massive opportunity to build something transformative in this space. The startup
so they didn't quit. They split off to make their own company.
Right.
That doesn't mean the end of Notebook LM by any means.
Right.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. And wait.
But, I mean, Google does have a history of doing something and then killing it off. So we'll see.
I know this looks terrible, but I'm just I'm changing this because I want you all to see. So this is the website that they've put up now. Let me get rid of this. Okay. So this is this is the new startup website that they have up now. There's literally nothing here. It says we're building 2024. I'll go ahead and put my email in. And I have no idea what happens.
So they haven't hired an art team yet?
Well, they have this. You're all set. We'll keep you posted.
Yeah.
I mean, this, I will say this is kind of cool. Just doing this a little bit.
Brand new. Yeah.
Kind of fun. But yeah, it's, this is a big, they're not taking Notebook LM with them. That's the other thing. I mean, Google owns Notebook LM. So the question now, I think there are two questions. One is, what are they going to do? And second, what is Google going to do? Google going to do with Notebook LM?
And
And
third, what are you going to do to transfer your information
Yeah,
from
I
one
know.
system to another system? But
This
this
is
all just happened today. So let's,
It just happened to, well, it just happened today, but we've, for decades, we've joked about how keeping anything in Google is dangerous because they're killing things all the time. Andy, I'm seeing you shake your head. Are you a Google Docs kind of guy or no?
Yes, I am, and I actually pay for Google Apps. So like I'm or
Yeah.
Google, my email is through Google, my person or my domain email. But yes, I agree. It seems like every time they have something good, they kill it off.
Yeah.
I mean, but even going back to the
Waves.
reader, the RSS reader, when back in the day, like they had that was good. They killed it off. They had Google Podcasts, which I can't say was great, but it was a product, and they killed it off in favor of YouTube
Right.
podcasting stuff. They just kill things off all the time. So I use it while it works, and then I know that I might have to move to something else.
I was excited about Wave, Tamara.
I loved it. I was
I
too.
was
They
excited
killed
about Wave.
They killed off
Never
Google
heard of it.
Plus. Google
because you had
Plus.
to be on a waiting list and you
Yeah.
had to get a secret invitation. And when you got there, you were like,
what did it even do?
We didn't really know. That's the problem.
yeah. It was really the precursor to the Google Office space
Yeah.
that they now have, like their workspace, which I do like. I mean, I also use it more and more each day. But is there no non-compete clause at Google? It seems weird.
You're right.
Any
Yeah.
other entertainment company, you probably couldn't do
What
that.
could they possibly take from their work at Notebook LM with them? Yeah.
Their brains.
I guess that's it.
Yeah.
And some brain rot. What, Tamara? What is this? What is this?
This is the word of the year from I think it was Oxford Press. I don't have it in front of me anymore.
Yes. Oxford University Press.
Yes, Oxford University Press. They picked a word for the year, which is brain rot, which I feel, and I'm conflicted about the choice of the word because it's based in this context on language that has formed out to talk about current internet and social media that is used by younger generations that makes no sense to older generations, which is basically how the English lexicon has worked its entire existence. so this is the word for the year, which is brain rot.
And
you say that that's a new word. I heard that back in the
That's what I'm saying. It's not a new word,
when
but
we
it's
were-
it's
and
new
it was
in this.
talking about people who were just passively watching television and they're going to have brain rot.
Right. I kind of feel like it's not new and it's more appropriated from other contexts prior to this one. It's being applied to this. So I was a little conflicted by it, but I thought it was interesting.
But the piece of it that I find interesting is how they define brain rot nowadays. That
Right.
it's this term for bizarre and semi-unintelligible, extremely online language.
Right. That's the part that it's like, one, the lexicon changes. And I mean, I don't have the article in front of me, but there was an article several years back talking about how the American lexicon is affected by 8th grade girls. that most of the language that comes into the population is based because the way the lexicon changes is that someone you respect uses a word that you don't know, and then you acquire that word. And in your social groups, it is spreading. And then in your social groups, it is spreading. And they found that the rate of that acquiring of new language and spreading of new language happens most with 8th grade girls, like middle school girls.
Perfectly reasonable.
Which sounds perfectly reasonable. So I found the word brain rot associated with that particular thing is not new and different because it's exactly as Lois says. We've talked about it in other contexts of like playing video games too long and doing, things that we deem is not going to make your brain stronger and healthier and smarter.
Right.
And I'm not sure I agree with it in this particular context.
So here we go.
They gave the term brain rot was selected from a short list of 6 words. They picked out 37,000 people and say, here's 6 words. You pick the word of the year. And the other words, just to get the context here, The other words on the list were demure, dynamic pricing, lore, romantasy, and slop. Now, I would have voted for
Understand
slop.
why
I
they
mean,
picked
slop.
brain rot.
Slop
I
should be
honestly
word of
don't
the
know what
year, I
any of
guess.
those words mean.
And so demure is, in their context, is based off of a viral TikTok video. So
Really?
that's what's interesting, is that those words, I don't know where the other ones, like what made them kind of the popular things, but it feels like it's, Law and Order ripped from the headlines kind of word choice. The word list comes from, the most popular friends, I guess.
Probably some AI. Yeah.
Semi-unintelligible. So,
It just means they've changed the definition enough that you and I, old timers, don't know what they're talking about.
well, no. So in the context of this story, semi-unintelligible is referring to the language that Gen Zers are using online.
Mhm.
So let's go there.
Well, and also
Um,
the Gen Alpha.
Gen
that's
Alpha, right? No,
using in
that's
their
what you're right.
regular
That's what I
life.
meant.
They're
Yes.
the babies.
I don't know half the words my kids are saying.
No, it's
So let's talk a little bit. Someone's dinging. I don't know if that's me. It's entirely possible it's me. I just dung again. I think that's me.
I can't hear it.
Oh, good. You can't hear it. It's just me. It's my daughter going crazy, texting me.
You're
Sorry.
dinging. Huh?
It's
Okay.
very faint here. Very
When
faint.
we're talking about our main topic, the
Wait,
evolution
wait,
of
wait. So we're getting this. So we're there. So hold on a
We're there.
second. We're there. So, semi-unintelligible. Here's my problem with calling anything semi-unintelligible. It's semi-unintelligible to me because I'm old and I don't use that language. But to define the way the way young people communicate today as anything other than effective and appropriate, just
I mean,
seems.
if you look back, I mean, I'm sure through all of our generations, we've
Mhm.
all had that, right? We've all had that where our parents have said, "I have no idea what you're saying. I don't understand you." But me and my friends knew exactly what we were saying. So I think this happens every generation.
Right.
Do you
So
think?
girls.
Do you think that Gen Z and Gen A are more lighthearted than the older generations, David?
No.
okay. Sorry. All those beeps that I was just hearing was my daughter saying, "I know demure," and the word lore. LOL, brain rotting. She's watching the show, making fun of the fact that I don't know any of these words. My 16-year-old daughter.
We're
my
loving your
Get
daughter
her
right
on the
now.
show
gosh.
next time.
Yeah, she needs to come
That's
on.
awesome.
I'm sorry, Paul. Ask me again.
Oh yeah. Do you think that like your daughter and the Gen A's and the Gen C's are more lighthearted? Does that have something to more humorous, more
No, no, I don't
No.
think
No,
so.
I think
I think perhaps I might get in trouble for saying this. They're more creative because they have been empowered with the tools to be more creative. Maybe, but let's can we take a step back? So I feel like we first need to wrap our heads a little bit around what communication is. It from even before conversation, the whole idea of written hieroglyphs and the way that we have communicated over time has both changed drastically, but also in large part remained very much the same. No, Lois?
Okay, so I'm the one who asked for this subject, and I have opinion on it.
Buckle in, everyone.
So buckle up. First of all, we communicate by talking, face to face, one to one. If we want to do a one to many, maybe it's a preacher or someone leading a work group or whatever. But that verbal communication is the core and the beginning of our communication style. Then we discovered language in print. We got an alphabet, however that happened. And now we can write to each other. So we now have handwritten messages, one to one, like letters, or one to many, like a proclamation that gets written out and then posted on the church wall, or is carried around by the king's announcers that go from village to village and read out the proclamation. And all this stuff is still handwritten. If you want to make 15 proclamations to send to different places, well, there's somebody out there hand copying each one. But we're still one to one or one to many. Now, when we get to printed, all right, now we've gone from handwritten to print. And that
around here.
that
I'm on-
means
I'm
that you
on,
what?
excuse me.
Oh, sorry. So that means that you can now reproduce something. You can print it, whether it's a flyer or a book or whatever, or a typewriter that you're doing a letter on. But anyway, the fact that it's printed makes slight difference in possibilities. So we have, in the same time that we've gotten letters, we've also established our social structure to accommodate that. So we now have a postal service. You take your letter, you hand it to someone, they carry it the other end, and my brother reads it and he gets a sealed envelope. It's perfectly private. Okay. When we get to print, we can do the same thing one to one. For the one to many, we now have much more flexibility. You can make 100 copies of something, nobody has to hand copy them, and send them out. So the communication gets a little bit easier for the one to many. We still have, and we have books, of course, which is one to many, but archived. So that's what I'm looking at, is the way that things go. When we get to, there are some exceptions. A one-to-one message is usually private. A one to many message is, by definition, not private. But if I send a postcard to my brother, that's a one-to-one message, but it's only semi-private because everybody who passes through it can read what's on the back of this. Oh, did you know that Lois went so? Okay, so when we get to the telegraph, and there's in our notes, it says in 1831, the electric telegraph revolutionized communication, speed and distance. It did, and it removed privacy. So now I can send a message all the way across the country, but every single repeater station is going to see that message. It's no longer private. Telephone came in, and after we got past the party line stuff, we're again private, one-to-one communications. The telephone does not lend itself well to one-to-many communications, but okay. And then we get radio and television.
Although, sorry, can I just jump in real quick, Lois?
When?
I just want, because just before we came on the show, I got a phone call. It was from a number that I did not recognize. It turns out it was my congressman. It was a robocall from my congressman. But here's what was interesting. He was holding a conference call tonight, and he proactively called me and said, "You don't have to, just stay on the line, and I'll connect you to the conference call." Now,
So
I did,
we have
because I
one
was
to
in,
many.
but it
Yeah.
was really interesting because I
is
also have thought of, I've never thought of phone as necessarily a good form of communication. But this has just never happened to me before. I was really interested by it. And of course, if we take that sort of brief history of time that you just laid out for us and we bring it up to today, now with Zoom and video conferencing, which we've had for a couple decades, I think, but now is again ubiquitous. It's just everywhere. I think it raises some of the similar questions about privacy and which Zoom, we all know, really had to struggle with in the beginning. Can I ask? I want to ask about what we're doing though. I was in a meeting just before this, and the purpose of the meeting was to gather feedback from a group of people. There were about 8 people. 2 of them showed up to the meeting because the meeting was held on site. And I said to the host, I said, if we had done this on Zoom, we could have heard those voices. And his response was, and he's not wrong, I feel there's something really important and powerful about being physically together. I get it. Absolutely, I get it. Pheromones, right? We can see, feel, we can smell each other. I understand that. What has happened to has this hurt communication or helped communication? I think there are 2 sides to that, and it feels almost like a religious argument. Andy, let me hold on, Lois. Let me get Andy in real quick.
I'm just going to say, I think that there is 2 sides to that. So yes, I think this has helped communication in the fact that we would never have this conversation, right? This group of people, this 5 of us, would never have this communication without the technology that we have here. But I think that it has hurt in the fact of there is something missing when we are in this setting. I think, yes, it's helped because it's connected us all and we've been able to meet people we would have never met. But I do think that there definitely is some physical or some stuff that can't be done online like this. Like if I think for I'm you may or may not have heard of Stephen Ministry before, but it's a one-to-one caring ministry, and I could not do that on Zoom like I can do that in person. So that's just
Right.
there's a physical aspect that I think that being together, there's something there that you miss when you're over the internet.
So what we do is it determines what form of communication we want to use. In David's example, they wanted to get feedback from the 8 people in their group about some topic or other. I don't know what it was. And if they restrict it to only people who will show up in person, then they're throwing away the responses from the other 6 people who aren't in the room. So it depends on what the purpose is for the communication. Andy's perfectly right. His ministry is going to work one-on-one in person. But if I want to talk to my cousin Abigail, who's in some far off country, I'm going to use a phone, or I'm going to use a
Right.
Zoom, or I'm going to use something that is a long distance
There-
thing. So
there-
let's not say that everything has to be done by the same thing, because that's not right.
No, and I think Lois, you're right, because I think even with that, there's the right tool for the job, right?
Mhm.
Because if I'm gonna if I just want to have a quick confirmation on are we gonna meet today or for coffee or whatever, I'm gonna shoot you a text. I'm probably not gonna call you, which is the right job for that communication. But again, having the coffee over Zoom isn't going to be the same as sitting face to face in the local coffee shop. So yeah, I definitely think there's the right tool for the job. And yeah, no matter what we do.
But let
But
me just push back a little bit on that. The job writ large is communication, is to communicate. And I wonder sometimes if text is the right tool for that job. There's no emotion over text. There's no
There can be.
If I write it all in caps, you're gonna know I'm mad at you.
I guess so. And
I
yeah,
think that
there are emojis, but I don't know. I feel like I mean, if I walk over to you, if I get out of my tush out of my chair and I walk over to you and I say, hey, or I call you even, whatever, but or I Zoom you and you can see me. and I say, hey, let's you want to have coffee? That to me feels like a different type of communication than shooting someone a text.
It is.
Shooting someone a text is still communication.
It
Yes.
is. I'm just
And
not sure it's
it makes the point of I'm trying to make a date with you. Is this a good time?
Yeah, but I also think, Lois, everything you laid out and everything that has happened to us post-COVID really also speaks to how technological changes change us as humans and how we react to that. So I'm much more likely to do in-person things with a much smaller list of people than I was pre-COVID. I'm much more likely, even if I'm in the same town as them, they kind of have to meet a criteria. I won't go to breakfast or lunch with just anybody to have FaceTime with them now. I'm much more cognizant of who I want to have that FaceTime with and who I want to be in connectivity with. But also, it has changed things. Like we see it a lot in work because the younger generation, our youngest, our Gen Zs who hit their work time right at COVID, they've literally never been in an office before. And you can see it in so many different ways. You can see it in negative ways where you're like, wow, your interpersonal skills and understanding of like the hierarchy of how the office functions is non-existent and there's no way for you to learn, because where you learned those things in the office was in the kitchen standing next to, and it wasn't in the meetings, it was in the in between times of the meetings. That's where you learned all of those things. But on the other side of that, they don't understand why you would have to go with a lot of companies forcing people back into the office, and then they go and they're like, I'm not getting anything out of this interaction.
Right.
And then the other side is, the other piece of it is accessibility. There are things that this medium has given us that are more accessible in the same amount that they've taken away some of the stuff you're talking about, Andy. Because I agree with you. Like, I'm a theater girl. We do things live and in person, but I'm also the person in the theater community who is pushing the digital conversations because they've been more global and they've become more interesting.
And I wonder, so is a performance, is what you're able to communicate in a live performance better than what you're able to communicate in a movie?
So here's what I tell the theater community. It is not one or the other. This is a new medium with new rules and with new things. If you try to do theater or live events in a digital space, then you are going to get a result that is neither TV and film and neither digital. And I believe that there's a place for both. There's a place for live theater. I will never not love being in a live theater and watching things in front of me and dealing with people, having a shared experience with an audience. I will never not love that. However, and I will never not love going to the movie theater. They're completely different medium. But I do think that this is a new space, and creating for this space is very specific.
Andy,
Yeah,
I want to.
I agree. And go ahead.
No, it's all right. You go and then I'll ask my question. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, yeah, Tamara, I think that what you're saying is 100% correct, and kind of what I was going back to before, like being the right tool for
Mhm.
the job. There definitely is a place for live theater, and there is that stuff that you wouldn't get in a produced video on demand type of a thing. And so I think that we need to embrace the technology that's here, because it's here, and it does bring it brings things that we never had before, like the fact that, like what Lois is saying, that I can contact my sister who lives in a whole different state, and we can have this face to face, and then if we want to, we can bring somebody else on, and we can have 3, 4, 5 different people in a room, where we couldn't do that 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, Andy, you and I both work with faith communities. I'm wondering if and you specifically, I mean, you I think do the TD or the production or the whatever. You're running soundboards and cameras and stuff. I mean, has the way that the church seeks to communicate, has it changed drastically in the past 5-10 years, or is it really just doing the same kind of thing but using different tools?
I think it has, David, and I think what I've said several times actually recently is, I think the live stream is our front door now. Where in the past 10, 15 years, we were making sure that our front door, we had greeters. I mean, we still do. We still make sure that we have greeters and people that make people feel welcome. But people, for the most part, aren't coming in and checking us out by coming to our front doors. Our front door now is YouTube, is Facebook, because that's where they come first, check us out, and realize, oh, this is a place that I could come in person. So yeah, I think that the way that we've communicated, and not only that, but allowed for a broader audience too. Because I know, for instance, we have a lot of people that we call snowbirds that come to your state, Florida, during the winter, and the way that they connect to us back here in Indiana is through our YouTube stream.
Yeah.
Whereas 10, 15 years ago, even before COVID, we weren't doing that. We were creating DVDs and mailing them out, and they'd see them several weeks later.
Wait,
Now
were
they
you
can watch
really?
it the same week.
You were mailing
Yeah,
DVDs out.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But back
So-
But it's
then,
for a
that was
different
ahead of your
purpose, though,
time.
right? Like
Well-
that's what I think is shifted, and where we don't want to. I think what we're trying to do a lot of the times is make this into something that it's not, and make the live version something that it's not. So before, when we were mailing out CDs of services, it was to people who could not show up, and it was intentional. So now it is, like you said, I think that the front door analogy is spot on. That's where people are, and that's true of prior to this, it was your website, right? Your website was the front door where people could get information about you and come in and kind of know if they wanted to know more. So I think the biggest thing is really thinking about how this technology is the same, how it gives us some aspects of the same, like it does allow for everybody to get together and have a voice where they don't have to drive in their car, and you get to hear from everybody, right? Whether that's through a hybrid, which I hate, but I do them, and or if it's online, when it comes down to I want to have everybody's voice, then I have to think about a digital possibility,
Right.
because now there's lots of reasons why people are not going to come in person. But I do think it's different, and it's changing us as humans and how we communicate, and we have to kind of try to stop trying to make it something that it's not, and really lean into the possibilities of it, and lean into the fact that it offers us things that we could not have any other way.
Yeah. I want to bring in a couple of voices that are watching. Courtney Gooden is watching. He says, and this is, I can't believe we didn't think of this, texts are asynchronous and phone calls are synchronous forms of communication, which is such an important distinction.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
up until relatively recently, I mean, Alexander Graham Bell, but even more recently than that, we didn't have synchronous types of communication other than face-to-face. What you were talking about, Lois, sending letters or...
You had phones.
No, I'm saying after pre-phone. Pre-phone.
Yes.
But then here's something else, right? Clive then jumps in and says, yeah, but a text, which is almost instantaneous, right? It's like just a little jab, right? How you doing?
It's still asynchronous, though, because
It is
if
because...
both of us are on at the same time, great.
Right.
But
So
if
look
it's
at
not,
what Courtney responds. He's like, yeah, but I only look at my phone once an hour.
Right.
It's funny because we use Slack in my business and I'm always checking Slack. I don't need notifications because I kind of always have an eye on it. So many other people I work with never bother to look at it. And so they miss all of this vital communication.
But if you think about, like, Courtney's exactly right, because we went from where we did predominantly our with phones, where people picked up the phone, right? And then we had a pager, and then we went to cell phones were not quite for everybody yet, but email started, and we became almost more reliant on asynchronous communication than synchronous communication. Right. And so one thing that this
right. Again, wait, I just want to highlight what Lois said again. Right.
Yeah.
Again,
So
like it was when we were
Right.
writing letters.
It's cyclical.
Right.
Yeah.
But we're back now where it doesn't, the asynchronous part is, hey, do you want to meet up for a Zoom? And whether that's an email or a text, then you get into a Zoom, and then it becomes a communication tool that's one-to-one or one-to-many,
Well,
like Lois had said.
I think we're falling into the same trap that we always fall into, which is assuming everybody's doing it the same, and they're not.
Yeah.
You may only use the text to poke somebody and say you want to meet up for coffee, whereas I might write a letter and stick it in a text and send it off to my friend, and she might write a letter back. And
Lois,
the reason
that's what the email's for.
Lois,
Right.
please don't ever send me a letter over text.
I won't.
Please.
I won't.
That's like my
there are
worst
some friends who
nightmare.
do not want to use email. And
Right.
for them, that's my communication.
And
So
it's funny because I'm the opposite. Like I'm in a group chat with a bunch of teenagers because we have a teen group here. I mute it. I can't. It's nonstop. Like I'll look at it now. I have 50 unread messages. I don't even know what to do with that. Send me
Right. And
emails and I can keep track of those. Sorry, Andy.
I think it's interesting too, because I think what I think, yeah, for me, it's interesting because depending what it is, like the text, if it's just a quick check, but I prefer talking, honestly, like face,
Mhm.
doesn't even have to be face to face, but even just audio, I prefer that depending on what we're talking about. If I'm trying to explain something to you, because of the fact that text doesn't always carry that emotions. Yes, I can tell because if you're in caps or whatever, but
Right.
you don't have that same emotion and that same understanding. If it's a quicker, you can hear my intent when I'm talking on the phone. So yeah, I think for me it kind of just depends on you know I'm gonna be repetitive, a broken record, but depending on what the intent is of the communication, I use a different tool.
Yeah.
I
and
found something really interesting related to that, though, too. Intent now is harder to understand in real life for a lot of people because they've started to one of the languages that works in Slack and in you know, Google, whatever your instant message group is, are emojis. That is how you
Ah,
clarify what you
emojis.
mean.
Right.
And I've had instances in the last year where I've been at work and there's been really bizarre miscommunications, like things where it was like, that isn't at all what the intent was in a conversation, but it was taken out of that. So I'm wondering if we are becoming less able to, even in real life, to understand intent.
intent, though, can be, since we're talking about language, whether it's written language or verbal language, intent can be described in language. If I write you a letter, now I can write a letter that looks like a text and it's all totally flat, it said no emotions, or I can write you a letter where I explain that I'm glad about this, I'm sad about that. My words explain the intent. And so I think it comes back to the individual person again, because if I'm on a phone call with you, yes, you can hear the inflection of my voice, but I didn't like text at all until they put that little icon on the phone that's a little microphone. You click it, and suddenly it's recording what you're saying. So I can speak how I would write a letter. And then, of course, I clarify and get the words right because it messes them up. But now I do text all the time by dictation.
Yeah. My wife does that also. And I think I don't remember if we were on air or off air, but last week I mentioned that I remember many, many years ago, a professor teaching uh, that we shouldn't be frustrated with young kids who don't use punctuation and grammar in texting because
Right.
texting is not a written form of communication. It's a verbal form of communication. And I'd never thought of it that way, it's just a fascinating way to think about it, that even um, the structures that we have always understood around communication have changed. It's not just the tools that we use, but like literally. I mean, children don't learn. Do kids even learn cursive anymore to write? I I don't think they do.
Depends on what school you go
Not, it
to.
depends on what school you're in. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
So, David, can we now bring back in the 16-year-old ban on social media from Australia?
all right.
Because I think that the real question there is, what are you trying to stop? Because in the social media, we have gotten past the one-to-one communication, past the one-to-many communication, and now we're at the many-to-many communication. Now, we had that in small ways earlier. We had forums, we had discussion groups, we had listservs. But now in social media, we have, I say something, and all of you can respond to what I said. And then all of them can respond to what you said. And so we've got this ongoing, in the moment, many to many communication.
Also, they cannot respond.
Yes,
Right?
that's true.
That's the other piece of it, is that I can post something on TikTok. I don't, but I could, and people could respond to me. And who is responding to me? The loudest people, who on both
Right.
positive and negative, who are making those responses. But there are thousands of people who are not responding, and who may be responding utilizing my content in ways that are either internal or external, or whether that could be sharing it with a friend, or taking something super personally that I didn't intend my video to be. And so I think that's where the concern is, right? Is that we don't know, we have no control once it leaves, who's ingesting that content and how they're internalizing that content. And I understand the intent of the law is to say kids are not of an age, just like they aren't of an age of drink to make those decisions for themselves.
Can I
How
throw
to
it?
implement that, I think, is a whole other crazy thing.
Can I throw a
Now, I do
different
think
piece in here?
If they're allowed to use email, if the ban is on social media, but they can still use email, they can still participate in a forum or a listserv or they can find some other way to do the many to many
they
communication.
can find some other way within their own country to use TikTok. I mean, it's like that.
Right.
That's these are very smart kids. This is not
But
that's not the issue.
I'd like to take a step back real quick. Sorry, one just big step back, because I think that you asked the right question, Lois. What are they trying to stop?
Mhm.
And I would argue that we have a very different understanding of what social media is and is for than the kids do. For us,
Right.
I think, I'll just speak for myself. For me, it's a place of content. It's where I can go to consume content, and it's where I can go to create content. And that content can be range from very personal, what I ate for lunch, or it can be a podcast, right? For kids, it's not content, it's communication.
Right.
This is
It-
kids use these tools to talk to each other.
But also
But
to brand
where do you-
themselves and to start businesses. Like
Yes, no, absolutely.
It's hugely different than, when I was younger, passing notes inside of a pencil sharpener to my friend. That was the form of communication of my 7th grade life,
Yeah.
right? So it's completely different, because like I asked my 20-year-old nephew, I'm like, what do you use? What do you do online? And he depicted all kinds of, I started my business, I'm branding, I know that I'm doing this. I was like, who would at that age was literally thinking of marketing through their personal brand? But the other part of it, he goes, and it's fun. Sometimes it's just fun.
Yeah.
And I think it's all those
The
things.
personal brand is an important piece of it. Sorry, Andy, I cut you off.
No, that's all right. I think that where does this stop too? Like you start at social media, but then do you say, well, Discord, that's not really social media. It's communication kind of, but it's more of a forum. But then is it okay to ban text messages, because that's really still the same thing? It's communication. Like you were saying, it for them, social media is communication. So where do we say this ban stops? Like, does it stop at text messages? Does it stop at just social media? Like, where does it stop?
Yeah, and Courtney, who's watching online, is also sharing something really insightful. The problem with social media has to do with the algorithmic platforming or siloing of communications, excluding some and platforming others. And this, I think, goes back, Lois, to your many to many piece, right? And this is why social media is fundamentally different than any other, than newspaper, than television, because of the scope and the ability for some to platform some, and some to shut down others.
Well,
So
and
you're
in a way,
talking
it
about
takes away
YouTube, right?
choice.
You're
Right.
talking about YouTube, not Facebook, right?
We're talking about in general.
Because Facebook, you see your friends and you choose who you're friends with and stuff.
Oh no, but
No,
Lois,
not
that's
now.
so
You
that's
don't
so
see all
sweet.
their posts.
No,
No.
it's not that simple. There's an algorithm.
There's still an algorithm.
Yeah.
And I do think, like, the algorithm, I think, is an interesting piece of it, right? Because in traditional media, which is where I come from, we put content out, and you as the consumer choose to watch NBC, ABC, Disney Plus, whatever it is, right? There's a choice. The thing about social media is that after a while, it isn't that much of a choice because the algorithm is feeding you exactly what you want to hear, and so you are becoming siloed, and there is access issues, as Courtney points out. But I think that is probably the part that is probably hurting all of us in a lot of ways, right? Because we're then becoming everybody I watch on my TikTok suddenly has the same beliefs that I do. And
Right.
then am I and I think that is the main difference between social media and I would say current social media, because
Yeah.
when you go back to early new media, when it was new, it was based a lot on again, a bulletin board I could go to. I could choose to consume that content, and there's a lot of content in our world now that I'm not choosing to but that the ads are chosen based on what they know I like. If I'm in conversation with someone, suddenly that's showing up at places. So that's a big piece of this that I think is the harder issue.
David, um, you were talking earlier about us on a Zoom meeting getting together. And I wanted to advocate for the benefit of having such meetings because there are so many people in the world who can't get out, who won't get out, who drop out of things because they're no longer welcome unless they show up in person. And I'm thinking about the Quaker meeting, and we continue to have an online portion of that. I mean, it's a merged meeting because there are people who simply wouldn't be there if we didn't have that. And so I'm hoping that as people are thinking about all this, they keep in mind the differences among us. And there are a lot of people who for whom this technology is useful. It's essential almost. Um, yeah.
It is, and I have to wonder. We've talked about how much communication has changed. I have to wonder I mean, what's next?
Right.
It is Zoom. Even Zoom isn't fully synchronous, I guess, if we're being really, because there is still delay. There's lag between us, but there are tools that are making that smaller and smaller and smaller. There are what's it called when you can see the person but they're not really there? In
Hologram.
three
Ghosts?
Yeah.
holograms. Do you guys remember? Was it
Science fiction's been promising that
how
for
many
years.
years ago did they do in the new? It was like for the election season. They did a hologram thing. I don't know. What's next, right? I mean, none of us could have imagined. I could not have imagined being able to do this even 6, 7 years ago. Even though it was available, it wasn't on my radar screen. So,
How
how
about we ask our viewers to give us ideas about what's next, and we do another show on that topic?
not next week,
Lois,
but
I
we
really
will.
like
Not next week,
I
but
liked what I
eventually.
like what you're saying, Lois, about the fact that some people can't come to the meetings, and it's important for us to have
Yeah.
that hybrid option.
Mhm.
And again, hybrid isn't the same as being in person. We all know that. We've all been to things that are hybrid. But for those of us who can't come, it's better than nothing. And I think that's an important thing to remember.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I think we have to really design for both spaces. And that's where you really have to think about the user and the audience experience in both spaces and really plan for that. And that's what the part where I'm excited about. I'm excited to see how we can make hybrid work, but be what it needs to be for each individual, and how can we link those together. Like, I love the Zoom ability to, like, everybody can be in a shared question and answer period. I think that's amazing.
You know what I'm thinking about? I'm thinking that it might be really interesting for us to explore a little bit um, uh, I'm not even sure how to say it yet. The psychology of of digital relationships, right? Like, what is it?
Yeah.
What like I have, like, you're my friends.
Right.
I've never met you official, like
In
so
person.
right. So
Right.
what is that? What is it? How is it that that these tools have allowed us to not allowed us, sorry. How is it that these tools have really changed the nature of friendship, I think, and connection?
But I would say even going way back to bulletin board, going back to like IRC, I met people online in digital
Right.
spaces where I did not see what they looked like
Yeah.
and became incredible friends with them. And when we met, it was like we had been because we kind of cut out all of the things of how does someone look, how does someone, we just got to the meat of things. And that in a way is doing that here. But so I mean, I produced a show with an amazing writer from Australia that I literally would not have met if it
Mhm.
weren't for COVID. And she pitched a show to me in July of 2020. I produced it in 2023. And when we met, it was like we had been friends forever. It was like we grew up together. So I do think there's some connectivity that we
Yeah.
didn't expect that, those of us who've been wanting to do online for years, when we saw Skype, I was like, this is so great. And it never kind of panned out. And the pandemic kind of pushed everybody into it. And now it's an option. So I think there's some really wonderful and great things. And I do think real true friendships can form. I also think that I think Andy's brought this up before too, where there's also a false sense of friendship in some
Mm.
cases. And I think that both things are true. And, but for me, I've met amazing people that I never would have met before that I
Yeah.
consider friends,
Yeah.
you know?
And
Same here.
Zoom is like pen pals on steroids. So
That's
I
a
don't
great
have to
analogy.
wait for 2 weeks to get a letter back from you. I can
That's so
speak
great.
and you can hear it, and that's amazing.
The next chapter, K. Graham says, is VR AR, Vision
Mm.
Pro in the metaverse. That just sounds awful. I
You want to define those terms, VR, AR?
virtual reality and augmented reality. I have not jumped on that bandwagon yet, so I don't even have a quest. I don't even know what they're called. I don't
So
have any of that stuff.
one of the
I'm gonna ask you to hold on, Lois. Paul, you have been so quiet up there in the corner of my screen, but I just want to say and invite you to chime in because I mean, you sort of embody the idea of connection over in digital space because of of all the time that you spend with office hours and all the people that you've gotten to know there.
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing community. And I got to know you there, which is one of the great things that happened there. So, yeah, I started a virtual community back before the internet. There was a virtual community called The Well in California, where Lois is nodding her head. She's out in California in Davis here. This was in Sausalito. We had a deck PDP, a miniature mainframe, and we developed software for interacting. It was like one of the first conferencing BBS systems. So, and I've seen this thing evolve through the years. I mean, it's amazing how advanced it's become.
Clive actually asked if any of us remember emailing over BBS.
I do.
Earlier in the chat, I do too.
And that's why we started the first commercial company in our town, because all of the BBS owners got together and they said, we want to do internet email, not
Yeah.
just it's private. And so we made a node and we did it, and
Wow.
there we go.
Those were the days. All right, folks. I'm going to call it for tonight. It's late here. It's 10:15. I made a note to myself that connection in digital space is something I want to explore. And there's an active argument going on in the chat about VR AR, because Courtney came back and said, VR and AR, it's a 2-decade-old topic, as Apple is now finding out. So that may be something to think about also, is, how might that really impact all of this communication, connection, all of it. But for now, I just really want to say thank you to all of you for coming on and joining me. I'm so grateful. And I'm grateful for all of you for watching. As always, if you have ideas, if you want to talk, if you want to share, do it ahead of time. Go to the rundown.show, or just show up and chat in YouTube or Mukana with us. And we love to hear from you. I'm grateful to all of you. Have a lovely, lovely rest of the day. We'll see you next week on The Rundown.